Hello, Adam from GodIsAGeek.com here with Calvin Robinson. How are you, mate?
Hello, I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
You're here. Well, I'm good, but you're here because we both share memories of Resident Evil, the very original Resident Evil. Before, in many people's eyes, it went to, well, it didn't go very well, did it?
Yeah, it's weird for me to say I have memories of Resident Evil, because any listener to the podcast will know that I don't really like horror games. So it's weird.
But Resident Evil, it was kind of an unknown when it was first around, wasn't it? Because it was, I don't know, I think of it as the first of a kind. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I can't think of anything like it before it. It was a horror, it was a suspense thriller, but it was also a mystery for me. That was the key that kept me coming back to it. Like, yeah, you never knew what was going to happen next, what was around the next corner. It kept you in suspense all the time.
It did, and a lot of that was down, I think, and I maintain to this day, to the art direction. Like, at the time, and this is going back, I mean, we're talking 1996, but at the time, It looked amazing.
It did, yeah.
You know, and it was remade for the GameCube, and there was stuff added to it, and the visuals were really, again, it was amazing then as well. But this version is that GameCube version brought right up to date, I guess, visually for PS3, PS4, Xbox One, 360, PC, you know, the works.
Right, so the version that released on the GameCube, has there been any changes to that?
What, from the original?
I mean, sorry, between this one and the GameCube one.
Now, that's a weird thing, because I have massively fond memories of that very first PlayStation 1 game. Yeah. And when I started playing this remake, I don't know what we're calling it, by the way. I want to call it Resident Evil Remake, but that's happened already, so I can't.
The re-remake?
Well, that's the thing. That sounds stupid, so I can't. I mean, I suppose Resident Evil 2014, but then if it slips to 2015, I don't know.
The new Resident Evil.
The new old Resident Evil. I'm going to have to ask someone to officially say this is the name of the game. But anyway, this is the GameCube version, looking really shiny, and I've played about an hour and a half. Well, I can only talk about an hour and a half of the game. What they've done is they've given like the full widescreen, you know, so it's a proper aspect ratio. They've updated it. I think it looks gorgeous, but I do think it's one of those games where you can tell it's on both this and last gen. Do you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
So, you know, I mean, in the same respect that, I don't know, a game like, you know, Call of Duty Ghosts or Watch Dogs or Assassin's Creed Black Flag looked great on 360. It looked amazing on PS4. You know, it's that kind of... It does look really nice, essentially. A long way of saying it looks really nice.
So the graphics are great, but content-wise, is there anything at all new since the GameCube re-release?
It depends what you deem as content, because the biggest thing I would say is the control method. So, because if you remember back then, it was tank controls, which...
Well, that was pre-analog sticks, wasn't it?
Well, that's right. But people... And I'm one of them. I often thought, and I mean, I'll come to this in a minute, but I thought that tank controls were... They kind of helped make the game, because you couldn't just like run off. You had to sort of turn, or you could do a 180, I think, at the time. But it wasn't quick. You know, you weren't able to move quickly. It added to tension, right?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I think I'm wrong in believing that, because having played it now, the modern version is just like any other third-person action game. Like, if you're facing one way and say up left and you press down right, you just turn and run the opposite direction. Now, it's still got the old gun control, so like, you know, you hold the trigger and you fire, and you can just basically aim up or down or move left and right, and it slowly glides left to right. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And that's still great, but I thought this new movement would be like, the tension's gone because I could just turn straight away and run away, and it's not. It still works, and I think that's possibly due, again, to the art direction. You know, like you walk in through a door, because, by the way, those door animations people are seeing in the video, no doubt, they're still there. You can't skip them. They're there. You open the door, it slowly creaks open. But you'll come into the room, and there's just like this camera angle, and it's like right on Jill or Chris's face, and you can't see anything else, and you don't know what's the other side of the screen, if you know what I mean.
Oh, gosh.
You know what I mean? But it's also, I mean, it's not... I don't know if there's any way they could have fixed this, but do you remember, and this happened a lot with those action sort of third-person games, where you would run off on screen from the left, but the camera angle would change so that you, by pressing right, you're actually now going the opposite direction again, and you go back up.
Oh my god, it used to annoy the hell out of me.
Yep, that's still here, unfortunately. But I think it's more annoying because that doesn't happen so much nowadays, and so you're just not used to it, you know?
Yeah, there's a word for that line that they keep breaking the line. I remember it from media studies, but yeah,
really,
it's bad cinematography, that is. But speaking of the cinematography, one moment that stood out to me from this game that I will always remember is the first time you see the dogs bursting through the windows. Oh my gosh, does it still have that feeling?
Yes, in short, yes. Like, again, I should have said at the top of the video, this is actually one of my favourite games of all time. I'm not saying it's the best game ever made, but I think in terms of what it was at the time, it definitely stands out to me as one of my favourite games of all time. You know, it got me into this. You know, even now I would care about a new Resident Evil and be excited to play it. But I thought going back, like, oh, you know, we're talking nearly 20 years. I think it's 18 years plus, nearly 19. I know this game like the back of my hand. It's not going to scare me. All that impact's going to be lost. They can't sell me on expensive, upscale, shiny visuals. Turns out they can, and it scares the wrong word. It ramps up that tension, because the first time, the bit you're talking about is when you go down the corridor.
Yeah.
And the first time you go down that corridor, the window, like, it goes ching, you know, where it's like something's trying to get in. If it doesn't break that first time, and it plays on your age, it plays on your memories, because you remember that dog jumping through the window, but you don't remember when it happens specifically. I mean, I think back to the moments of, like, Christ, you know, the first big spider, and I think back to the other enemies that come later in the game, and I think back to that first moment where the zombie turns and looks at you, and it's just like, it's that still freaks me out. I mean, even in Mikami's latest game, The Evil Within, there has a moment in that game, in I think the second chapter, where that exact scene happens, and it still freaks me out. It's that idea of I don't know, but it's so far very good, and I don't know because I know you're really not a horror game fan, but this, to me, I want to play more, and I kind of thought I didn't know if I would, you know, because it's old.
Yeah, it is quite, but I mean, playing it must bring back so much memories, because if you think about games like BioShock and stuff, I don't think they would be around without Res Evil. The influences that you can see as you play it, can't you?
Absolutely. I mean, the biggest problem I have is purely age here, in respect of, like, so the voice acting was always really cheesy and crap, like, you know, it is a Jill sandwich kind of thing. Let's hope this isn't Chris's blood, and all that stuff is there, but it's the Cube remake, so it's the script writing's still cheesy, but the dialogue's not delivered in that original PlayStation 1 form. You know, it's more like,
everything felt like a single line of dialogue, didn't it?
Yeah, but now it's back. It's, like I say, it's the Cube remake, so it's not cheesy. And the biggest problem I have is the two games, because although they're both the same fundamental core game, they added so much to the Cube remake that I find the two have meshed into my brain, and I'm confusing which one's which. And so there are things like when that early scene where he's like, let's hope this isn't Chris's blood, and it's like, oh, that's the voice acting's wrong. Oh no, it's the Cube remake, it's not the PlayStation remake. You know, it's a lot of that goes on. I mean, you know what's going to happen because you played it a million times, but it still kind of has that tension.
Well, I haven't played this game in nearly 20 years, so I assume if I play it, I'll get a completely different experience to what you've had. You
may well do so. I mean, the one thing that comes across to me is how relevant it still feels. Like, you know, where horror games have just gone all first person and jump scary, this is one of the pioneers in that it's all about the art, you know, the creepiness. Don't you say the murder mystery almost feel to it? You know, you're in a horrible mansion that at first you're like, what the hell's going on here? And it's just that the lightning flashes outside, and then a crow will go by the window, and it's still that game, but it's brought screaming up to date, and I kind of think it's more relevant than ever because it is all about the art style and not about jump scares. I mean, there are jump scares, like you said, the dog and that, but it's still about how it looks and feels, you know?
Oh, I can't think of a better endorsement than that, Adam.
Indeed. And just before I forget, you can still play it with tank controls and in non-widescreen if you want. But yeah, read the preview, do subscribe to our channel. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Do watch it again if you want to see more 1080p Resident Evil 2014 edition. I don't know what we're calling it. But thank you very much to Calvin.
No, thanks to you, mate.
And we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.
Bye.